Who in the audience, by the way, has gotten a chance, I can't see any of you, so I'm going to pretend that I can, who's gotten a chance to snag a little Wapu from the claw machine? I immediately just bolted to get one because I'm a big fan. All right, great. Well, hi, yeah, so anyway, I am Michelle, that's me. Like they said, I'm the director of UX engineering at Lone Rock Point. That's an agency that serves the public sector. You might have heard of our work on a little website called the NASA website. I did get to work on that. It was super fun. And this job title, it's a fun one. It means that I straddle the line between design and development, and I'm really fascinated with how users experience things, which is why I'm here today to talk about all of that. But first, I want to take a little bit of a step back and talk about design systems as a whole. And I want to start with atomic design, which is a classic. How many of you, I'm assuming most of you have heard of atomic design at this point. If not, it was introduced to the ecosystem more than a decade ago. It's made up of modular, reusable components that work together to create consistent, scalable experiences. And this approach, where you take something from very small all the way up to very big and very specific, is now really common for digital product teams, anywhere from web apps to marketing sites, because it's very predictable, it's very adaptable, and it's very scalable. Most major digital presences are backed by a modular component-driven system that follows atomic design principles. You can see some examples here from the US WDS, which I'm very familiar with, working on public sector sites. Also things like Material, Adobe, Atlassian, Spotify. Pretty much everyone has this very modular component-driven design system behind it. And honestly, with WordPress, we've never been more ready to produce atomic sites in WordPress than we are right now with the block editor. We have this robust set of tools and capabilities, modular blocks, reusable patterns, site-wide styles, tokens, no-code visual editing. And even if you're not a block editor fan, third-party page builders are also continuing to evolve with even more granular controls. We have so many different ways of building these things for our clients. And as service providers or product builders, we pitch these tools with enthusiasm, right? This is how we sell it. We're like, you can update your own site. You can build all these complex layouts now without needing a developer to change them. They're flexible, they're performant, they're fast. You can see exactly what it is you're building. And then we do the responsible things, right? When we do these projects, we do the deep dive on their brand. We want to create a really compelling user interface. We build this beautiful, accessible, responsive front end because we're all doing it right. We meticulously lay out all their pages, we create all the demos, we create the documentation, and we train them, and we congratulate them on picking this great editor, and then we send them on their way. And then 6 months to a year later, consistency starts drifting. The layouts that the client is making start getting sloppy. There's some random colors and some random fonts appearing. The pages are either really cluttered or really sparse. And at worst case scenario, they start posting less or give up entirely. And on the surface, it doesn't really make sense. Like we gave them this really exciting, robust set of no-code tools, exactly what they wanted. So why are they struggling? And where we went wrong, we have to look back at our own UX process to figure that out. And so you could all use a different kind of UX process. The one I'm going to talk about specifically is one called Lean UX. Has anybody heard of Lean UX? Cool, at least 2 of you. Excellent. Lean UX I really like because it's a pretty agile workflow. You are constantly learning, testing, validating, and going back. But I'm going to run this process through the Lean UX approach to figure out where we went wrong. Why are our clients struggling to update the website with all these cool tools that we gave them? So with Lean UX, you have your business problem, which is your client's problem. This is whatever problem is impacting their business. And then we look for their business outcomes, which is a measurable indication that the problem is solved. Then we look at their users, which is their customers or audience, right? And we figure out what outcomes and benefits, meaning what change in behavior indicated that they got what they needed. And then we look at solutions, which are the features that we're going to build in order to go from these problems to these outcomes that we want. And then after that, you take those things and put them together into a hypothesis, because Lean UX is about testing. So we will get business outcome if we implement solution, which will allow user to get user benefit. As an example, this is a public sector example, because that's what I do, for a website that lets residents commit permit applications, right? So you have your problem defined, and it's okay if you can't read this. It's just kind of an example. You have a problem defined. There's some measurable outcomes, things that you could actually see. We have the users being residents that need to fill out the forms. We have the benefits of them finding and completing applications, and then the solution that we want to give them is a guided step-by-step form with clear instructions. So what is missing on here? This looks great, right? Like, we've defined our problem, we've defined outcomes we can measure, we know our users, we know what benefit they're going to get. I don't understand what the problem is. We have a hypothesis, right? We can fill that out. We will get a 30% reduction in calls to a service center if we have blah, 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 et cetera, right? You can read that. What's missing? What's missing is how that guided step-by-step permit application form that we want to build as a solution is getting onto the site in the first place. And that's the missing piece here. A content management system is not just an end-user-facing static website that is built once. It's solving for more than just this one set of problems. So we have the business problems, which we just saw on the Lean canvas, right, between the business and the users. But there's another set of problems, right? We have our process problems, the internal procedures. How do we get content on the site in the first place? Who has to approve? What red tape does it have to go through? And we also have other content problems, like, is this content accessible? Is it readable? Is it relevant? To build solutions that solve for all of these problems, you need to account for all of the users. Content creators are users too. When we create a user experience, we have to think about their user experience. So what happens when we don't think about the content creators? Well, a few different things happen. One is the blank canvas problem. Here's a screenshot of the editor. Here you go, build it, build your page. That's intimidating. In the default state, when creators are facing an empty editor, every single layout decision is starting from zero. And if you think about it, like, how many steps are involved from here to making like a basic call to action, right, with like a heading and a button and stuff? Or how many steps does it take to do the traditional like 3 columns with image, text, and a button? Like, how many tools, how many steps do you need to go through? Where do you need to go on this interface to get there? Decision fatigue or having too many steps leads to inconsistent design or abandoned content. On the flip side, you have people that are excited about a blank canvas and they're ready to get started. And for those people who are not intimidated by a blank canvas, you have the do-it-yourself problem, where people are spending a whole bunch of time tinkering with colors and alignment and layouts instead of creating content. I built this just using 2025 out of the box. Like, I didn't do anything weird, but it's very attractive. You can see that. And even with a well-designed theme like 2025, you can erode your brand and do really bad UX and, of course, terrible accessibility, right? And we've all seen this in other DIY tools. I'm sure you've seen very attractive PowerPoints made by people because they can. This is the do-it-yourself problem. So as a result of these things, if the tools that you deliver to your client are difficult or intimidating, your publishing frequency is going to suffer. If every single update that they make requires them to make design judgments, then your design quality will suffer. And if the content creation process has no guardrails, then the content quality will suffer. A bad content creator experience leads to poor content creation, which results in a bad end user experience, no matter how thoughtful the original site design was. So let's revisit this Lean UX map with, we have the external users now on one side. We're going to look at our internal users, our content creators, right? And they have a different set of problems, right? So the external users can't find the forms. The internal users, the content creators, they're struggling to update the forms because it's hard. And what they want is to be able to create and update this content without breaking design or waiting on developers. So what solution are we supposed to build here? Because without whatever solution that is, we won't have the outcome that we want. So how do we fix it? What steps can we take as theme or product creators, as agency people who service clients, to fix this problem and design solutions for our content creator users? There's 3 different things that we have to do in order to do this. We first need to use our existing UX processes to understand the problem. Again, I'm going to use Lean UX as an example because that's the one I like. But whatever you do internally, use your processes. The ones I'm going to talk about are specifically about personas and about using journey maps or jobs to be done to learn about the users. Then you can utilize all of WordPress's built-in tools to implement a design system. And a design system, which we're going to learn about, is your foundational elements, your components and patterns, and your content and voice. Then you use that to build a curated content creation experience, giving guardrails on the available options, providing pre-built layouts, and customized based on the type of content or the type of creator. So I'm going to step through all of those. First of all, let's look at our UX processes and see how we can incorporate content creators into our research and design. How many of you have heard of the concept of a user persona? Probably a lot of you, right? I'm going to talk about a specific version of a user persona that's known as a proto-persona. It's one that is pretty popular in Lean UX because it's a low-fidelity sketch of users that is built on internal assumptions, meaning you're actually sitting in a room, maybe with your stakeholders, with your client, and you're talking to them about who they think their users are, and then you validate that through future research. So at the beginning, you don't necessarily need to have all of the research. You just kind of write down, like, what are your assumptions? And you then iterate and validate that through future things as your project is going on, maybe through, user interviews or through analytics or whatever tools you use to do that validation. It's really great for the start of a project because you can start building before you've done all of that stuff. And I'm going to do some examples of some potential content creator proto-personas and see if you recognize any of these people. Backwards and forwards are 2 different buttons. This is actually a pretty good UI. It's like a giant green button goes forward and a little red button goes backward, but sometimes you just want to push the little red button. All right, so first example of a content creator proto-persona, the quick publisher. This person just wants to get content out efficiently with minimal friction. They are under pressure, they want to meet deadlines, they just want to update something, maintain regular posts. You probably know this person. They just want it to work. They aren't trying to make it look pretty, they're just trying to do their job, and they get frustrated when the editor requires a lot of clicks or decisions or making all sorts of stuff just to make a simple page. So this is the quick publisher. They just want to get in, get out, get it done. We also have the visual experimenter. They really want to make content visually engaging and help their messages stand out. They're motivated. I mean, they usually work in like marketing or communication or something like creative adjacent where they want to present their ideas effectively. And they really like to try a lot of different stuff. They want to try layouts, colors, they want to make it pop. Okay, these are the people that want to make it pop or grab attention, right? And their challenge is without guidance or constraints, their layouts can go all over the place, right? And as a result, they might be harder to read or less accessible. Then we have the occasional updater. They don't really spend most of their time creating content, but sometimes they have to do it as part of their job. Maybe there's random updates or they just make some announcements. They don't really do content creation on a daily basis, so they struggle with remembering where the heck everything is and how it works, and they might have to rely heavily on things that already exist. So if it's really complex, or if they don't know how to figure it out, or if everything's behaving inconsistently or stuff changes every single time they go in there, they are probably gonna make mistakes or abandon what they're doing completely. So those are some examples of potential content creator proto-personas. Do the process for the ones that apply to your content creators, but this is really useful. And then we want to find out what they do. So one technique we can use is called a journey map. If any of you have heard of journey mapping? Anyone? All right. what a journey map is you outline all the steps in a single process. So for an external user, that might be like log into your account or purchase an item from a store or find and fill out a form. For your internal users, that might be something like, you know, publish a blog post or like make a landing page, right? A journey map outlines these steps, but you can see the kind of wavy line. It also outlines their thoughts and their emotions and how they change over the course of the project. So the wavy line kind of represents like, this is going really well, oh, this is going really poorly, and then what might they be thinking? So this lets you find opportunities to increase their satisfaction and increase their delight. Another technique you can use is the jobs to be done technique. And you can use them both. They aren't exclusive, but this explores why the user is there and what is motivating them under the surface. So it's not just the thing that they're doing, but also like, the task they're accomplishing, but also like, what are their emotional needs? Like, why are they there? What are they hoping for? What are they afraid of? We're gonna use this one to explore potential examples for people on a content managed site. So one job is create a new landing page. And this is all written very fancy and UX-y. It was like, when I need to promote a new product, etc., I want to quickly create a landing page with the right structure and design so I can launch it on time without needing to rely on a developer. I want to be confident it looks professional. I want to not be frustrated. I want to look competent to my colleagues, right? I mean, those are all important. Struggling moments, I don't know which patterns to use. All these options is difficult to control. I'm afraid of publishing it before the page is ready. Pages sometimes look different from what they're supposed to, right? Another example, updating an existing piece of content. If you notice outdated or incorrect information, I want to easily find and edit it so I can make it accurate and trustworthy. I don't want to depend on developers. I want to build trust with my audience. I want to be reassured that I'm not going to break anything. And I struggle with locating exactly which page or block I'm supposed to be updating or editing. I feel like the formatting shifts. It's very frustrating. I'm worried I'm going to break something. Everyone's worried they're going to break something. And I'm just not sure if it's going to look right once I update. Here's another one, publishing a blog or a news post, a little different than a landing page. I have new things I want to share. I want to publish a blog post so I can keep my audience engaged and position my organization as a thought leader, because that's really why we're doing anything. I want to feel proud of my content, and I want everyone internally to think I am a thought leader too. And my struggling moments, like, it feels weird to add things. I don't know how to format this right. I am afraid that I'm going to publish something and break it. Very similar. So these are some examples of types of jobs to be done that a content creator might have. Again, go through this with your content creators and the specific things that they are doing. And then you can combine your proto-personas with one or more of the jobs that they're likely to complete, right? And, they might be doing, different personas might be doing the same job, or they might be very segmented. But then you imagine how each persona would react to each job. What would be the same for one persona versus another doing the same job? How do their motivations impact their actions and results? And so this is how you get a really clear picture of who your content creators are, what they're doing, what they need, why they're doing it. So once you have this, now that we understand the problem, how do we build the solutions that will shape their experience? What I'm going to do next is show a few technical examples, but this is not a comprehensive how-to build talk. In the last slide, I have a QR code that links to not only the slides, but a whole bunch of resources that dive deeper into each of the things that I brought up. So if you want to learn more about how to actually build these things, that is a good starting point for you. I'll also mention everything I'm going to say here is a core WordPress feature. We don't get into things like custom blocks or any other kind of custom code, which are also an option, but I really just wanted to share with you what you get as a theme developer or product developer kind of out of the box with WordPress customizing things. So first, we're going to talk about design systems. We can take advantage of all the current ways that WordPress supports implementing a design system within the editor right now. By definition, a design system is, well, Figma says it's a set of building blocks and standards that help keep the look and feel of products and experiences consistent. And Wikipedia says it's a comprehensive framework of standards, reusable components, and documentation that guides the consistent development of digital products within an organization. And a design system typically contains foundational elements like tokens, which are the building blocks of all of your UI styles, alongside the atoms in atomic design. It also contains components and patterns, which are more complex assemblies of UI elements like the organisms and molecules in atomic design. It often also contains content and voice guidance to help businesses communicate consistently with language and imagery and stuff like that. We are going to be focusing on the first two within the WordPress editor, though I have shared resources on the third one in my Learn More link. So if you want to learn about that, you'll get that at the end too. But I'm going to focus on the first two because those are things we can technically implement within the editor right now. First, we will talk about foundational elements, which are the building blocks of all the visual decisions being made. If anyone is familiar with design tokens as a concept, anyone? All right, at least two of you. Again, excellent. I think of design tokens as a curated set of global opinions, basically. Most design systems, like the ones I showed you before, are using them. Adobe's opinion is that they are design decisions translated into data, a shared language between design and engineering for communicating detailed information about how to build user interfaces. And Atlassian says that they are name and value pairings that represent small, repeatable design decisions. They can be a color, font style, white space, even an animation designed for a specific need. So they're very, very granular. First, we start with the base level, which is a value. This is a particular color of magenta that I like to use. I just think it's a fun delete. That's fun. So this is your base level. It's a value. Your next level goes by lots of different things depending on which design system you're looking at. They might be called global or base or primitive. This is a tokenized representation of that value as part of a specific selection of tokens. So if I see magenta 50V, I know that it means DE1E7E. But instead of looking at every single hex color that possibly exists, I've only picked out a certain amount of colors, and these are the global tokens that I have within my color system. Then you have the next level. And these are known as like theme tokens or semantic tokens, describe the role that they play in the project. So this is like primary or secondary or base. So a step above, so my primary token points to magenta 50V in this case, and magenta 50V represents DE1E7E. You can also go another step further and do component level tokens, which describe very specific context. So card button active has been assigned primary vivid, which is magenta 50V, which is DE1E7E. It sounds kind of complicated, but honestly, it's a really great way of being able to change things across an entire system very quickly. I am not getting into how to set up a design system here. Again, I have resources for that, but this is kind of how they tend to work. You can see some of these tokens exposed in the block editor and site editor within the block or site styles panels. So this is an example. I've got some theme JSON of a bunch of colors, and these are those colors that you are interacting with in the styles panel. And you can see there's several different tokens that theme JSON has out of the box. Again, the ones in the settings section of theme JSON are the ones that you tend to interact with in the editor. So that's stuff like color, typography, spacing, shadows. Interestingly, the typography, spacing, and shadows are more like these global tokens that I'll go back and show you the global ones here, like the magenta 50V example. But the color in the editor, I think, tends to be more like a theme token because it's usually like primary, secondary, base, reverse, foreground, background, etc. So you can see that my particular example, if you can read the JSON, which I don't expect you to, abstracts these further with another layer of global tokens. I didn't put my hex values in there. I put another set of variables in there. Then there's another setting in theme JSON called the custom section, and custom properties in theme JSON will basically they'll output CSS variables, and you can make them be whatever you want. It's pretty lovely because you can make it work for your project. You can create any number of other tokens to support a true tokenized design system. So this example is showing theme token values for colors that have added context. So I have things like these are the interactive colors. This is the UI border color. This is the table border color. This is the warning color, the info color, the success color, right? And they are referencing other tokens that are, a layer below, which are referencing tokens that are a layer below. These are just some examples here of types of tokens that you could make, base values for colors, base values for borders and animations. You could do, again, like these theme values for colors. You could do things like card values, banner values, reverse values. You can start seeing some examples here of some component tokens. I have some button level variables, like button active color background is one that's sitting right there. Button active color text is another one. Things for quotes, headings, tables, forms, etc. Then you can pass those tokens that you've created to the elements and blocks section of theme JSON. And like I said, this isn't a talk to teach you how to use theme JSON specifically. There's lots of great resources for that, which I've linked to. But what I am saying is, like, by using theme JSON to create a tokenization system, you can create consistency between all these elements. Because now, here, I can pass my tokens to this section instead of redefining all the hex values and all the pixel values and all that stuff. So if I change it in one place, I can change it everywhere. Builds consistency. I wanted to also here kind of pause and define theme, because in WordPress, the word theme has meant something really different than it has in the rest of the development sphere, right? Like, we all know what a theme is in WordPress, but in a design system, when you start reading about other front-end frameworks, they would say a theme is really a collection of token values designed to achieve a certain look or style. Arguably, with the block editor and full site editing kind of changing how functionality works, I would say that theme is closer to meaning this in WordPress than it ever was before, right? But in addition to providing these style options, which seems like it's not adding that much value, a theme does have other ways it can add value. And that is where we get to our next part of design systems, which is the component and pattern library. So the WordPress block editor itself is a component library. It has dozens of blocks, aka components, that are available for insertion and customization. You can see a sample right here of how many options are available just for these couple of core blocks. The block editor also has a powerful capacity for themes and plugins to bundle patterns, and there's even like a hosted library of patterns that are all available for you to insert. Plus, there's additional capabilities like block variations, block styles, and custom transforms for core blocks that create even more options. But we talked earlier about some of the problems of like over-choice decision fatigue, do-it-yourself. We need to look at how to turn all of these really great capabilities into a curated experience for the content creator. So the first principle of that is to have guardrails on the available options to promote ideals like accessibility and brand consistency, which is kind of why we're here. Basically, we don't want to give people the tools to make choices that would be off-brand or inaccessible, because then they won't build off-brand or inaccessible things. So what kind of guardrails are available right now? The editor actually comes with a lot of design options, right? We saw the screenshot of all the different things you could possibly change. Even typography, you can change the font size, font weight, font family, line height, letter spacing, text transform, like that's all there in the editor. But these can be restricted globally and also on a per block basis. This is an example in the code here of globally disabling options, so saying that they're all set to false, and then re-enabling them for a specific block, some of them for a specific block. This is an example of the same piece of content, the same block, with different restrictions applied to it. So the top is 2025. It has all of the options available to it. You can see in the little panel there. The bottom, we have a whole robust set of colors, but the heading we've decided can only be black or white. And we will only let you change the font and the size. And we won't let you change anything else. So that's something you could do. Limited colors and typography choices. And there's no access, you can see here, no access to custom values. So we only let you do those things. Even this can go as far as removing blocks themselves that shouldn't be used on the site. So you can remove access to the block and pattern directories. You can specifically disallow or specifically allow different core and third-party blocks as needed. So if there are blocks that you don't think people should have access to, you can easily disallow or allow those as well. The second principle is to provide pre-built layouts and sections to enable content creators to quickly assemble thoughtful content. The biggest thing themes can do here, and in my opinion, one of the ways that themes can add a ton of value, is to provide a thorough selection of patterns that represent real content that people are actually going to use. WordPress has built-in categories for patterns, but you can add custom categories that actually fit the type of content that's being made. And also a note that patterns can have some amount of PHP support, so when you're making patterns, these can have a little bit more dynamic content, which is kind of fun. I have some links in the last slide about like what the limitations are of that, but it means that you have some kind of fun options in terms of the things that you can provide. Also is an option to create starter patterns that show up as soon as a new piece of content is created and contain entire commonly used layouts. These can be specific to certain post types just to keep it relevant, right? Because maybe a page versus an event versus a team member profile would have different patterns. Within the database, once you're in the content, you can create synced patterns, which are a special type of content that can be inserted everywhere, and then they're just updated once, and it updates across the whole site. Unfortunately, at this time, you can't bundle those into themes, although there are conversations about that happening. But once you're in the content, especially if you are a service provider that is doing kind of a full service for your client, you can help them set up synced patterns for common content like forms, calls to action, FAQs, read more posts, or other reusable elements. The third principle is to narrow down those customization options further, depending on what content is being created or even who is creating it. Patterns and templates, like I said, can be limited only to the content types where they are relevant, which can help with that decision fatigue. You can also do block locking within patterns to prevent users from moving or removing content. So if you're like, I want you to be able to insert this pattern but not remove it, or I want you to be able to insert it and move it around but not be able to take out any of the inside parts, those are all available to you. So back to the Lean UX map to add a solution based on what we've learned. So these content creators need a pre-built WordPress content pattern that's easy for the staff to edit while staying on brand, and that will lead to the guided step-by-step permit application form with clear instructions. So in summary, effective websites aren't just built once, they are shaped every day by the people who create the content. So if we want consistency, accessibility, and impact for the audiences, we must start by empowering our creators. This is that QR code that I promised would have the link to the slides as well as a whole bunch of links to all the things I talked about. Here are all the places you will be able to find me after this if you want to connect with me on social. If you want to visit my website, this is Lone Rock Point's website, and also in Minneapolis, where I am from, we're going to be having another fun event called SumConf in April. Feel free to talk to me about that afterward if you want to learn more. But otherwise, I have some time for Q&A, and I will put that other slide back up. I just wanted to put the Q&A slide up so you knew it was time for that. Cool. Yes, so now you can go to the microphones because there are spotlights on them, and you can ask me things, and I will have this water.
Woo, it's bright.
How do you think I feel?
That was fabulous.
Thank you.
And something that I found, I've created some pre-built blocks and templates and things for clients, is that they'll still misuse them. You know, they'll still put too much content in one of those little sections. I still feel like I have to monitor how they're using them. Is there any, like word count restrictions, anything else that could help?
So there's tons of things you can do once you start getting into the custom blocks side of things, but I will say that I don't think any amount of tools will replace training and documentation. This is really just a way of making sure that the tools themselves aren't making it worse. So I don't have like a very clever answer to your question of like how do we make them not make the things bad, except that my principle of designing things is always to test the content in my block with less than ideal content to make sure it still looks good. You know, like what does the title look like if it's 1 word versus 20 words? Does it still function the same? And I would say if you're building stuff like that, test that stuff out too.
Yeah, I think people just don't know how to organize their content. And they don't know how to think about their content in an organized way. So they just create a bunch of jumbled layouts, even if you've given them a lot of good components to work with.
That's true. I mean, at the agency I work with, some of what we do is also education on how content works and how to best like have a good voice. And like I said, I don't think tools can replace education, unfortunately, yet. Maybe next year.
Sometimes I just have them lay it all out, do the best they can, let me know that they did it, and I'll go and clean it up.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hi, my name is Connie, and if I'm using the 2025 theme and I put some guardrails on it, do I need a child theme for when the 2025 theme is updated?
So yes, you do need a child theme for this, and the way that theme JSON works in child themes is it overwrites it, and if it overwrites it if it's there, and it doesn't overwrite it if it's not there. So you could choose to like copy this theme JSON from 2025 into your child theme and just change things, or you could choose to just like write a fresh blank one. There are really good articles about like which things are and are not overwritten in a child theme in theme JSON because it's a little bit fuzzy, but the short answer is yes, you do need a child theme, and just throw the theme JSON in there and start doing it.
That's what I wanted.
Yep.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
We're working on building something a lot like this right now in my team, and the thing that we're just not sure about right now is how to get the Figma system into the theme JSON. There's possibly a lot of manual work if we did it manually, so if you have any tools.
Ooh, so actually, this is something I haven't used, but I found it on this QR code link thing. VIP has a Figma to WordPress solution that they wrote about fairly extensively. I shared some links.
Oh, cool.
So check it out and see if it's helpful. I haven't used it yet, but it might be cool.
Perfect, thanks.
Mm-hmm. Hi.
Hey there, thanks so much for coming and giving this talk. This was really, really comprehensive. I'm curious, from a UX standpoint, if I were to go sit down with some of our content creators, the people who are actually the ones writing a lot of the posts and pages, do you have tips for the kinds of questions and like workflows to ask them to go through to make sure that we are thoroughly asking them, what is your workflow like?
Sure, that's a fun question. So the types of questions that because I've done some of these kinds of interviews, so I'm trying to think back of like what questions did we ask. I think we asked, what does their day-to-day look like in addition to doing this? Like, what else are you doing? What other systems are you interacting with? What are the things you currently like about it? What are the things that currently frustrate you? If you can have them actually sit and do it with you, that's amazing, especially if you can be quiet and say nothing and let them screw it up. Like, that's actually super insightful if you have that opportunity. If you just have the opportunity to do, an interview or a survey, asking questions about what's frustrating, a question about, like, if it could do any one thing it doesn't do, what would that be? Not that you're going to build it for them, but you learn how they think. I'm trying to think about if there's anything else that was really a fun question. Asking about like other technologies that they're kind of using on a day-to-day basis and if they like any of them a lot is also very insightful. I find if people can't necessarily figure out what's wrong with the thing in front of them, they can point to other examples of things they do and don't like. And people do have an easier time complaining about things than saying what they like. So that's usually like, if you need to get some insights from people, like have them react to things they don't like. You'll learn a lot. Yep. Anything else? We have like 3 more minutes of free design time. Very expensive service given away on stage. Okay, Okay, well, if not, I will be around for the rest of the thing. So thank you so much for coming, and I hope you have a great rest of the day.